Next in the program is going to be our panel discussion. And that's going to be led by Temika. So Temika, do you want to do the introductions to the group, or do you want me to? Or have them introduce themselves? Okay. All right, I'll turn it over to Temika.
Testing, okay. I have an engineering degree. I should know how to turn on a microphone. Yeah, pull this out. That works. Good morning, everyone. Hope you all had a good day. It's pretty warm down here. I come from DC, and I thought DC was humid, but this morning proved otherwise. I'm grateful to be here. So my name is Temika Cage. I'm a security solutions engineer. I support North Carolina and some of the local accounts, so grateful to be here. Raleigh has a special place in my heart because I started my IT career. My first day was here, even though I've always been based in DC, but my first day was here, I think RTP. But again, grateful to be here. So we have this amazing panel today. So I'm gonna let everyone introduce themselves with like their name, their role, and then we have a little icebreaker we do where the icebreaker today is, if you could have copilot, if you could have copilot take over one task in your day-to-day life, work or personal, what would you happily hand over first? I know for me, because I'm traveling today, I would like to hand over my expense reports. Like, we do have some automation, but it just takes all the expenses and throws it in like an account. Like, it will not itemize the hotel receipt, and I absolutely hate doing expense reports. So if I could turn that over right now, maybe I can create a bot, I don't know. But that's what I would hand over, on top of maybe getting Copilot to fold my laundry. But with that, we'll start right here. And again, name, role, and what task would you like to give Copilot?
Hi, I'm having a problem with technology today. And I'm our Deputy Secretary of AI and Policy for North Carolina. Department of Information Technologies, that's a hand. You know, I want Copilot to just help me with scheduling meetings, right? Like, and maybe it's already there, so again, forgive me if it's already there, but man, I waste a lot of time just trying to figure out, oh, I need to meet with Tori. Okay, well, when's he available? When's he not available? Oh, this person too, right? Like, can you just make it easy for me and just say, hey, you want a meeting with Tori? Here are the possible dates. And, you know, like, just easy scheduling.
Agreed.
It's on the roadmap. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Mathurin. I'm a technical specialist director here at Microsoft. What that means is I lead a team of solutions engineers, and all we do is try to find novel ways that we can use generative AI to help you make your lives a little bit easier. We've managed the eastern half of the United States, so part of our team's going to be presenting here momentarily, and we do everything from M365 Copilot, Copilot Chat, Copilot Studio. So really excited to be here today with this distinguished panel. To answer your question, I would preemptively ask Copilot to apologize for me being 5 minutes late to pretty much every meeting on my calendar. But no, in all honesty, I feel like the education of staying on top of AI is such a challenge. You can take 2 weeks off on vacation and feel like you're totally behind. So if Copilot could maybe recommend 5 minutes worth of learning in the form of articles, you know, YouTube video, a podcast that help me stay on top of everything changing, I think it'd be pretty powerful.
There's a lot going on just with technology in general, but AI is advancing pretty fast.
Good morning. I'm Ryan Schweibert. I'm the CIO here at Wake Tech. So I want to welcome you all to come to our campus today. It's great having you. So a lot of the things that have already been said are things that bother me a lot. I spend a lot of time in meetings. I hate paperwork, that kind of thing. But really for me, if I could use AI to help me, not just with my work schedule, but with my schedule as a whole, over, you know, personal and otherwise. I have a lot of things going on in my life, and if I could have something that just basically said, here's where you need to go today, and here's the top 10 things you need to be on top of, that would be awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, I could use a personal assistant.
morning, everybody. My name is Andrew Hester. I'm one of the IT directors with the City of Raleigh, specializing in the Infrastructure and Operations Division. If I could have Copilot do something for me, the meetings definitely resonated, but I guess to carry on to that theme, I'm always feeling like there's something I've missed. And for it to kind of maybe draw attention or highlight, not so much like a punch list, but kind of see through the actions and the things that have happened and say, hey, here's the two you missed. Be fantastic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Neav Abramov. I am a senior modern workplace specialist with Microsoft, and I particularly represent our education side of our business. I've been with Microsoft for 12 years, and as it pertains to Copilot, I actually use it every day. So I could tell you what I particularly do on a personal note. Once a week, my wife comes up to me and she says, what do you want from the grocery store? And prior to AI, it was always nothing, whatever you get, I'll just eat. But what I do now, what I actually enjoy with Copilot quite a bit is I do like to cook. I'm avid grill, smoker, you name it. I will grill everything and anything that you give to me. And often I need ideas, right? And so I'll say, hey, Copilot, I have Greek yogurt in the fridge, I have pickles, and I have a whole bunch of seasonings. What kind of marinade can I use for chicken? And it will give me a wonderful 5 recipes. It uses the pickle juice that I didn't even think about using. It makes me use the Greek yogurt as a base and a bunch of seasonings. And then I say, hey, make me a grocery list on the ingredients I need. Then I take that grocery list, I take it to the pantry, I take it to the fridge, I say, okay, I have these 4 items, but I don't have these 3. And then I go to my wife and say, could you please get these 3 items when you go to the grocery store? And that's the way I use Copilot, literally once a week for a problem that's been a problem for me for a really long time.
Yeah, that's a good idea because I waste a lot of food because I don't know what to do with any of the ingredients in my fridge. But thank you all so much for your introductions. And as you can see, there are a lot of different uses or ideas that we already have in regards to what we would want Copilot to do. And there could be some capabilities today. And I know Scott mentioned that, they're still doing the rollout of Copilot Chad for government, but I know Ryan, EDU is a part of the enterprise, so they already have had access to Copilot Chat. So can you talk about what that experience has been like?
Yeah, so it's been a great experience so far, although we've taken kind of a stance of making sure that we have policy, procedure. My president today talked about our AI council. We've put a lot of that stuff into place first because I think the governance and the training are really critical before we start sitting there and doing things with certain parts of AI to make sure that we're protected. But the experience with Copilot so far has been great, trying to figure out what we have included versus what is something that we need to add on top of that has been a bit of a challenge at times, but we've been trying to work through that with Microsoft and our other partners. And then just really getting our faculty interested in Copilot in particular, because they hear a lot about a lot of different tools. And so, and what a lot of you don't have to deal with, we do. We have academic freedom. People like to talk about, this is my classroom. I'm going to do certain things in the way that I want to do them. So trying to get them to see that the value of Microsoft Copilot it really has the things that they can do.
Speaking of, trying to show the value of AI, what have been some of the biggest misconceptions that you have discovered while trying to implement AI?
Oh boy. So there's misconception of it'll do everything for me versus it really wouldn't be useful for me at all. So a wide variety of it. But I think one of the funniest things that I hear a lot from some of our faculty is that, well, I'm not going to use AI and neither are my students. And the thing, I kind of laugh at that and I say, we may have faculty in the room today. They're using it already. So you might want to figure out how to be sure that you're incorporating it into what you're doing instead of sticking your head in the sand.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the kids, I feel like adopt the technology first. So switching over, I want to ask I-Sah this question in regards to like your role and what you foresee. So as Copilot is integrated more into society and our government and things like that, how can institutions address like the digital literacy and the responsible AI use?
Yeah, so let me just make sure I'm clear on the question. Is it addressing digital literacy, helping people understand AI,
Yes.
or being more responsible with how we use it for them?
Both, like, being, becoming more literate with whatever we're doing in the digital space, and then also how do we use AI responsibly?
Yeah, no, you know, gosh, what a great big question. You know, the um, in terms of responsible AI use, like kind of pulling on the thread of what I said earlier, it's so fun to build a chat bot. We can knock it out in a few minutes or at least get it started. But it's really that care and feeding, you know, like for us to just think about, we just got to put ourselves in our citizens' shoes and just think about, okay, how does this impact them? And so a big part of what and this is low-hanging fruit, by the way, just to earn, you know, trust in any relationship. It takes a long time to build, quick to lose, right? So, but if we are thoughtful and if we come behind these chatbots and say, you know what, I'm going to test it every week. This chatbot saves my division a lot of time. We've reduced the number of calls because people are getting questions answered so that I, as a social worker, can focus on social work or whatever it is. But let's reinvest a little of that time on the backside to say, hey, look, we're going to regularly check it and ask the questions to make sure it's still giving the same answers, right? And this kind of ties a little into the misconception. For me, the most common misconception that I'd love to have all of us start to help shift is AI isn't this weird random thing that just has a mind of its own and just will do whatever it wants. It's so hard to control, right? Like AI, I sometimes feel like the misconception is people feel like AI is something that's happening to them and they feel powerless against it. I heard an MIT professor, I read an article where he said, you know, let's shift that. Like we're the ones in control, like Ash said. You know, and so if it's not giving the right answer, then let's figure out why, right? Because of the way it was trained or because my data wasn't there. And so again, we as good stewards, to build that trust, have to come alongside and just regularly test it so that to make sure it's staying relevant. Because, you know, everything drifts. Everything becomes less relevant over time in the AI world. It's our job to catch that before the people using it catch it.
Yeah, and AI, it's such a big topic in the place where I live, especially in regards to the fears of it, taking over our jobs. And, there's a fear of, am I going to have employment with this big boom? So do I embrace something that I think is going to replace me? So Jeremy, you work with a bunch of accounts in the public sector. What are you seeing out there in regards to Gen AI and adoption and use cases?
The list is longer than I think we have enough time for this panel, but industry to industry, I think we're seeing new applications almost on a daily basis. One space that I think is really exciting is in the constituent services space, specifically social services workers. Because at the end of the day, a true effective government is the safety net for a society. They catch people that fall between the cracks. They help ensure that there's food on the table and a roof over someone's household. And so as I envision the social services organizations of the future, it gets really exciting. I'm imagining, waking up in the morning using Copilot to ask, what were the most recently passed legislation at the state, federal, local level? What are some of the changes to my budgetary expectations? What are some of the eligibility criteria that may make it easier for people to get the services they need? And then throughout the course of their day, there are solutions like our translator agent, where you can speak in your own natural language, and 96% of the population of the United States speaks about 38 different languages. Well, now we have an agent where that person can speak in their natural language, you can speak in your own, whether that's English or something else, and there's an AI overlay where you can now understand that person. You don't have to read subtitles at the bottom of a page. You're having a conversation with someone in a completely different language. And then you can summarize that meeting, take all of the individual action items you have to do, and provide that person the resources they need. I mean, that's inspiring because it takes, maybe in the course of a day, you could help 4 people. Well, what if we increase that by 50%? What if we double that? That means that's double the amount of people that can have, again, the resources they need to live a dignified life and have a roof over their head and have safety and security. So I think the folks that are really embracing AI are starting to see incremental increases, but when they start to focus on the return on mission, how many more people can I help, can I serve on a daily basis? we're starting to see it be transformative. And so when I look forward a year, it makes me feel like there's no better place I'd rather be to try and be a cog in the machine that makes that real.
Yeah, because I know anytime you have to get any type of social service, the drawback from it is I'm gonna have to wait all day to get an answer, or how long am I gonna wait on the phone? Do I have to stand in line? Like, anybody been to a DMV lately? I don't want to go. So if we can use AI to help streamline those services, it could be a game changer for us as citizens. Now, Neav, you are in the education space. Are there any like major use cases or transformations you've seen with AI?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing an array of use cases when it comes to value of AI in our institutions. And we're also seeing a lot, especially in the digital literacy space, right? ESA's focusing on today's workforce. I'm obviously engaging with the next workforce and how they're engaging with artificial intelligence. Recently, I was at a university and we did training for faculty, and we did training for B school students, for business school students. What an interesting dynamic. The faculty wanted to understand a lot of the fundamentals, right? How do I prompt appropriately? How do I interface and engage with Copilot within the Microsoft suite? Real just fundamental understanding, so they had a good comfort level. They felt that they were at least at the same level as their student population. The students, we did a separate prompt-a-thon with them. We spent an hour and a half doing the same stuff, teaching about prompting, showing them how to use Copilot within the Microsoft Office suite. And then we spent maybe like 5 minutes, 10 minutes on agents, like, oh, and you can also build an agent. This is a thing you can do. Now present to us how you would use Copilot. Out of the 15 presentations, 14 of them were building agents with the students. The students were so past the idea of prompting, they'd already been doing it, and 14 of the 15 all built an agent in the 30 minutes they had. One was give me the latest in sports. One of them was, I was actually a freshman and I would love to, I built an agent for housing. So I got all the information I needed to know about how to get to the, a different dorm or a different room and things of that nature. Someone even just took random menus from public facing websites and said, well, at least I know where I can order food and DoorDash from in between classes. And they all built a public facing agent in that 30 minutes. It was an incredible presentation by the students and where they were at. One of the biggest examples that I've seen value in Copilot probably impacted Wake Tech probably in the last couple weeks, and that's commencement, right? One of the most beautiful parts of the college experience, right, is watching these students grow and graduate and get their degree and move into the workforce. One of the most miserable parts is the registrar's office, who have put all this work, created a website, gave you all the information, tells you exactly where to go, where do the students go, where do the families go, where to park, and yet the registrar's office gets 150,000 emails and phone calls, even though the information is publicly available, right? And so what I saw a lot of universities do, especially around this time of year, is build an agent using Copilot to answer all of the commencement questions and reduce phone volume and email volume by 80%. Because for whatever reason, using an agent to respond and answer to the masses was much more desirable than scouring the information on the web. It's another great way we're seeing Copilot use an agent. And the last thing I'll touch on is on the portions of digital citizenship for students in particular. What we're seeing a lot of colleges do right now is build 1-credit classes for incoming freshmen. This was actually announced recently at Ohio State that they're building a digital literacy class that every freshman is required to attend when they come into the school. And it's less about, this is how you use AI. It's much more of a conversation, a public forum for these students to talk about how they've been using AI, what is the right way to use AI, and some of the values that it will provide them through their college experience. We're even seeing in the education landscape, a lot of organizations, colleges in particular, change the shape of their plagiarism policies, because some of the folks that they were targeting for plagiarism, they learned really quickly, fell into a certain demographic or ethnic group, and were realizing they were using AI not to cheat, but to be on the level playing field with the rest of their peers because they were language learners. They had an opportunity now to be on the same playing field as the rest of their student peers by not being constantly picked at their grammar, but more of the content of what they were creating. And so universities are making these adjustments in plagiarism policies because they understand that this is helping them in a lot of different ways, their students be on an even playing field.
That's, some amazing stories. And it seems like, to Issa's point earlier, we're being ahead of AI, and we're not, coming behind and trying to fix things, but we're seeing this, it has some great uses. Let's get on top of it. Let's, make sure everyone has the training that they need. And that is a part of what, today is all about, is training and getting people comfortable with it. And Neav just talked about all the advances in education. But Issa, what do you see in the next 12 to 18 months as far as like workforce productivity with the use of AI? Do you see any big changes coming?
Not necessarily like big changes that we haven't seen, but seeing a ton of activity around and excitement around chatbots and digital assistants. I love that, and the copilot is perfect for that. But I want to encourage people to not stop there, right? Because and don't get bored with the idea of a chatbot either, because if you look at it as not just a digital chat with what's publicly available, but being able to let's take that next level up and delight our customers, our citizens. Say, hey, that was a great conversation. I've already started filling out that form for you. Here it is, right? Like, ooh, yes, please. Or being able to just think a little further ahead to integrating maybe your chatbot with some of our systems, or there's so much. There's a science here. There's this, we can go really deep on that alone. But don't stop at the chatbot. My favorite tweet from like the last couple of years, somebody said, hey, the hottest programming language now is the English language, right? That's when you lower the barrier of entry to anything, to the spoken word and the English language, or whatever language people want to speak in, it doesn't even have to be English, right? All of a sudden now, we just opened up this world of possibility. So I'd love for a chatbot to be, to tap into our quantitative systems, on predictive forecasting. Hey, run 200 million simulations for me before I make this important decision, right? Who of us don't want to do that? Or let's create a digital twin. That's big now, right? Digital twins. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming, but let's get the blocking and tackling down first of what is AI, how do we manage it well, and then we can fly.
Absolutely. Now, Andrew, you work with the city of Raleigh. Do you foresee, some major things or things you're excited about in terms of using Copilot in the workforce?
Yeah, I can share that the city of Raleigh has been spending the last 6 months with our AI task force doing a lot of that blocking, tackling, and kind of laying the foundation to build where we need to be so that we can then launch starting in this upcoming fiscal year about 200 users for our kind of champions group within the M365 Copilot space. And so we're very excited to see what that brings about, how it amplifies and boosts productivity, citizen engagement, and service delivery. And we will then, of course, kind of try to gather the feedback, and we hope to grow it from there. That's kind of our floor and our baseline is at 200 users, but we don't want to stop there. We want to keep growing and expanding.
Absolutely. Now, Ryan, you guys have had it a little bit longer. Has there been any feedback or lessons learned in the early adoption phase?
I think we learned early that education training was the most important thing. And that's what I've heard a lot of others on this panel talk about, is having that foundation, making sure people know what is good. In fact, I like the RIDE anagram. I'm going to take that. So thank you. But it was great because we really do need to think about all of those fundamental things about how high is the risk, what data is affected by all of these types of things. Because we certainly have people in our organization who want to go in head first without thinking about those things. Then we have our laggards who want to kind of hold back and see what's going to become of it. So we've done it enough to know that it's got a lot of promise for us. There's also going to be a lot of other AI tools that are going to end up in our environment it'll be built into some of our educational tools as well. One last thing I want to talk about is it pivots a little bit, which is AI literacy. So I think AI literacy is the new digital literacy, and we need to be putting a lot of effort in that. And for me, as a educator at heart, that's our wheelhouse. And so we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out how we not only make sure that our faculty are literate in the use of AI, but also that our students are. And my president, again, we speak a lot about this threaded AI concept, about incorporating AI into everything that we do as an institution, all of the classes that we provide, because the jobs of the future, they're going to be there, but they're also going to incorporate AI as a part of that. And so those are the types of things that we've learned specifically. It's not so much copilot centric, although we see a lot of promise there, and we're going to be doing some big announcements at our convocation about how we might continue to grow that use of it in the future.
Yeah, the responsible use thing is a great point. You know, with me working in security, that's a big part of, you know, the daily conversations that I'm having in regards to making sure, you know, we use AI responsibly and that we have checks and balances to make sure, you know, it's still doing what we thought it could. It doesn't have access to things it shouldn't have access to, because that all can be exploited. And I love there's always a little note in any AI tool that you use that says, hey, AI is not always right. Make sure you check it. Because, you know, I have older parents who, you know, oh, well, you know, the computer said it's right. It's like, that's not true. So, okay. And Jeremy, you mentioned earlier, you made a joke and you said it's in the roadmap. Can you kind of talk about some of the things that are on the roadmap? Like we're talking about agents today. Is there anything crazy coming out in the future that they're going to make me train on?
Yes. It's actually probably already in your required training, so when you get home, you can refresh that. No, there's so much to get excited about. I mentioned earlier some of the pre-built agent capabilities. So a translator to facilitate conversation, mind-blowing. There's also some researcher capabilities. So, you know, the traditional scientific method where you have a problem statement and then hypothesis, data analysis, you know, results and then conclusion. And so there are now, within the education space, use cases where you can now run simulations that used to require an advanced degree in machine learning or data engineering or computer science. And now you can run actual simulations based on your own problem statements and hypotheses that require a lot of compute power. I think the ultimate vision, and you know, I'm going to borrow a phrase from marketing, so pardon. It's you know, we hope that things like Copilot will be the UI for AI. And I think what that means practically is that nowadays we open our computer and, you know, how do you get ready for the day? Well, you look at your calendar. Okay, I've got about 15 minutes to eat food, 7 minutes for a bio break. You know, schedule in your coffee time, read through your emails, maybe ask Copilot to summarize them. You know, what was the last angry email? Where was I mentioned? Did my boss assign me something last night? Teams, et cetera. Maybe that process takes 15, 20 minutes to just get your head on for the day. But I think in the future, a year, maybe 2 from now, you open up your laptop and all of that transactional information is done with your digital assistant, right? Because Copilot and other like solutions are like a really smart, rambunctious like intern. And so if you can ask your intern, hey, can you just read all my emails, all my Teams messages, look at my calendar, just help me get my head on straight for the day. And I think we'll know that we've made a meaningful impact in that direction when people actually do that. They open up Copilot and they say, all right, help me get my head on straight. And then it says, hey, you have an email from your boss that says immediate action required. Why don't you start there? Then, you know, you've got a really important meeting with a few CIOs this afternoon. You should probably spend some time preparing for that. And so the AI becomes not just a tool, but it's embedded in the way that work gets done. So we're just starting on that process and that experience and creating tools that create that user experience. But it gets me excited again because it just makes it so much more powerful what you can do in the limited 8 hours we have in a business day.
Absolutely. And you said that, you know, once we get to a point where everybody is using it, that's how you will measure impact. I want to ask everyone up here, how are we measuring the success of AI? Like, what's the ROI that we have to get from AI? copilot to deem it a success? I guess we'll start here with I-Sah.
This is hard, but I'm trying to learn how to measure trust in an organization. It has been done. There is a science around it, right? Trust in an organization and trust on an organization. So that's part of it. But then you also have little metrics like, trust is so nebulous. Like, how deep are people going in their Copilot chats? Are they still, who's still using it like a Google search tool? Whereas, and based on the depth of conversation, there is that strong correlation between like AI literacy and how deep they're going in a conversation versus just hey, no shade on the recipe. I do that all the time, but like, what's a recipe for pickles? And right, like there's a difference there. And so, but measuring AI literacy, I think for me, the first place I want to go.
Jeremy, what's your take?
I'm most interested in what some of the folks that are on the ground serving respond to this question, because I spend a lot of time thinking about what return on impact means to an organization, but I alluded to it earlier. To me, there are very clear, right, I think few of the folks on this panel have engineering backgrounds. You've got cycle time and throughput, and then, can we convert time saved into the amount of dollars that creates in terms of, things that can be done throughout a business day. But I think organizations are starting to shift their mindset, and it's less of a how many discrete tasks have been completed, how many widgets have been moved from point A to point B, and it's more return on mission, right? So how many more people have I served today? How much easier is it for me to accomplish the mission of my organization, right? Whether it's providing technology infrastructure or providing educational services, how integral is it in my ability to get my job done? Because every year the expectations do nothing but go up, right? And rarely are we given additional hours in the day, additional budget, additional teammates to work with to get those things done. And so I think that's the biggest measure, return on mission.
Brian, have you seen same things?
Sure. So I think it's early days. The way we judge it today is interest. So the amount of people who are interested in coming to sessions like this, participating in our training, asking us questions about the things that we do. From there, it goes into the projects that come out of it, the things that they find to do with it. We have innovation grants internally. So the premise behind that is if someone has an idea, we can provide a little bit of money towards doing something in that. And so we're doing that specifically with AI. So we will gauge both by the quality of the projects that come through and also the quantity of those projects. From there, it becomes more about how we've actually moved the needle with students and the classroom itself and how well that has gone. But also from a productivity perspective, how much better it has made, individual admin assistant or a administrator at the college. So I think time will tell how much this goes, but judging by the interest that we have today, I can tell you that a lot of people are very poised to do a lot of great things.
Yeah, I think college campuses are like a vast pool of just like original thought or innovation because so many great ideas. A lot of things that we've seen in our society and things like that were like birthed from a college campus. That you are incentivizing if you have ideas with AI here, we'll support you. I think
sometimes it feels like we're holding back because it's almost like we have our foot on the gas pedal and the brake at the same time with AI. And so sometimes people will feel like, oh, I wanted to do this thing and they said, no, we can't, but we do have a lot of people who will just keep trying. That's great.
So Andrew, are you seeing something similar at the City of Raleigh as far as metrics?
Very, very similar. I'd say it's a blend of these two gentlemen's answers. There's the technical back end. If we've issued a license, is there actual adoption? Do we see prompts being generated, engagement and adoption? What about training and the level of participation? But yes, we're in a local government entity. We exist to serve the citizens. And at the end of the day, we want that service to be high quality and the speed at which we deliver those services to be very fast. And so if we're not seeing that those core mission values and metrics are moving forward, the needle's moving in that direction, then we would reevaluate, is this tool producing results, and adopt better training or pivot in some way. So we do want the actual technology within the Copilot space to be leveraged, but we're also going to measure to make sure that as it's being leveraged, it's improving our service delivery overall.
So just Microsoft in general, we have 4 AI transformative pillars that we follow. One of them is reshaping business processes, and that's how we're measuring ROI. So we deal with 75 million, it's an actual number, incidents across all of our customers every year. We're starting to now leverage Copilot to find the information, to, number 1, record the incident, number 2, if we have an answer for it, in our vast libraries of knowledge, provide that incident, those answers back to our customers at a much faster rate than we've ever done in the past, and also freeing up our capital resources, our team members, to focus on more important tasks rather than answering questions about legacy software that we barely support anymore, right? Because maybe it's an application from 10, 15 years. Copilot can find that answer while they're focusing on the newer technology. Another way that we're enriching employee experiences is, so we have a sales force of approximately 65,000 employees in Microsoft. All of us have Copilot. And what we saw over 12 months for those who had Copilot was a 23% increase on completing tasks and closing opportunities that we're working on, as well as a 9% increase in ROI per head for those that were using Copilot regularly. And we're also bending the curve of innovation. In the last 12 months, we have put out more features, more product updates, more enhancements to our technology than we've ever had in the 50-year history of Microsoft. And that's because we're using GitHub Copilot to write the code for a lot of these applications, and having then those engineers review that code, ensuring that it's ready for production for all of you to consume. And so we're going way faster in that experience there. So reshaping business processes, it was improving employee experiences, bending the curve, and we have one more pillar, and it's escaping me at the current moment. Let me think of that last one, unless you remember it. But those are definitely 3 ways that we're measuring ROI, at least at the current juncture with Copilot.
Oh, it is. Okay. Speaking of Microsoft, and we're all here for talk about Copilot today. Can the Microsoft folks talk about Microsoft's approach to making sure that our AI tools are ethical, and our approach to that? Because I know there is a lot of fear around, like, we'll use AI, but I have friends who are very skeptical about like what they put in AI. So can you talk about our approach to that?
Neav, did you want to go first on this one?
I can definitely start with that. So as Copilot Chat gets introduced to all of you, you're going to see on the platform on the top right corner a little green check mark. What that check mark implies is you have something called enterprise data protection. Now, we have a Copilot that anyone in this room can sign up for their own personal use, right? Not to be intertwined with your business use, but for your own use. And we, as you use that tool, our language model is training off of the way you're using that Copilot. The enterprise data protection version is not training on how, for instance, individuals at Wake Tech are using Copilot, right? We have an LLM within the organization, and it is only training itself to interact with constituents of Wake Tech, but is not feeding our larger model. And that's just a big way in which we want to provide catered experience and keep those experiences unique to the organizations we're interacting with, and not just take all the experiences across all the constituents and feed it into one large language model. We want every model to be different, and we want that to be unique to the experience of the customers we're working with.
I'm glad I gave you a chance to answer first, because I was going to take that another direction. What you just described is, how we've layered protections into the user's experience, which is obviously incredibly critical. Your data remains your data. We certainly don't want to be Microsoft's one of the most ubiquitous technology platforms on the planet. And so we make very certain declarative statements about how your data is going to be used, and that's absolutely first and foremost in this conversation. I think it's also useful to take a step further back in that timeline, because Microsoft, anytime we decide we want to take a product to market, we are now shifting tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth of labor hours and resources, thousands of individuals touch a product before it ever hits the live environment. And so early on in the inception phases of things like Copilot, we have a committee, we call it the Aether Committee, and it's made up of internal employees, but also industry experts from the public sector, international, right? Because we don't just create tools for the United States, we create it for a global audience. And so there's a rigorous analysis of should we actually build this? And then throughout that process, we're also starting to determine what are the quantifiable metrics that we can use to determine whether or not this tool can be used ethically and responsibly. And so there's a measurement process that happens with discrete tools using actual developer code. And then once it's actually released into the live environment, there are internal processes in place, things like A/B testing, regression testing, double-blind testing, to determine that each usage of this technology is being used in a way that is in compliance with our internal responsible AI framework. I think the most compelling piece is we're now reaching a place where we were conservative in terms of the amount of protections we wanted to put on things like Copilot. For example, if you ask it to do something nefarious or illegal, it will say, I can't do that, right? It is baked into the engineering of the tool. But there are public sector organizations, think district attorneys and judges, even social services workers, people that live in a world where there are illegal things that are being done. And we have police departments and sheriff's agencies saying, hey, can you actually roll back some of those protections in place, because we need it to ask the questions that we need to of this data. And so I think it's an exciting place to be because we were conservative, and so we're building a product for the government public sector, so we wanted to be extra intentional about what that experience would look like. But I do think we're at a place where we're creating even more customization options so that all of the discrete use cases that come up in the field are things that we can approach. So it's built in, it's customizable, and it's taken into consideration from the first line of code.
Yeah, and it makes me think of Issa's point earlier that when you talk to AI, you need to tell them, this is how I want you to answer my question. So it's important that the data are separate. Like I know when I search something in Copilot and you have the work versus web. If I search web, it's going to give me a different answer versus if I search work, it's going to give me an answer as a Microsoft employee. So yeah, that is, important, and that gives me more trust into AI because I know that in order for it to be more effective, it has to be segmented. It does. Well, with that being said, we have like 5 minutes. Does anyone want to leave the audience with a word or something, or we can end the panel? But I have no further questions, but I'd like to thank everyone for participating in the panel, giving wonderful answers.
Can I just give a quick shout out? And this may be the only time I've ever said it in my career. It might be the only time any of you have ever heard it, but I want to just say a good job to Microsoft Legal. All right. As I've reviewed like the Microsoft terms and conditions with our procurement folks around, okay, like how do we protect ourselves from an AI standpoint? Microsoft has been so thoughtful and intentional from an ethical perspective, from just making sure like, hey, here are the standards that we follow. And my personal favorite is any output from the generative AI products that Microsoft puts out is state data, right? We see it as state data. And I have even told other vendors, like, why can't you be more like Microsoft? And they're like, we've never heard that, right? So kudos. Yeah, we don't record things, but good job. Seriously, you guys have made our jobs easier to just get our arms around this big, beautiful, crazy thing called AI.
Definitely appreciate that. Can you say that on record so I can email the manager? Yearly reviews are up. But does anyone have anything?
I just say that this room and all of the thoughtful questions and things that we've seen today tells me how much of a promising future we have with AI and with Copilot. I want to thank all of you for your interest in this. It's an exciting time for someone. It's great to see. It's exciting for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think this day is going to be fun. It's cool to sit down with technology and see, what it can do. Yep. All right, well, oh, go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to leave, my closing remark would be to piggyback off what was already mentioned, that a lot of what we talk about with Copilot it originates with the data, the quality, and the organization, and it's never too early to start. Even if you don't have a license, even if you're still waiting for things to manifest in the tenant, you can take some of these lessons learned today from the workshops and then also just begin to kind of prep your workspaces or your team's workspaces in order to receive those benefits when they do activate.
Absolutely. So have fun this afternoon, play around with it, share, collaborate, and innovate. That's it. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, Temika. Thank you, panelists. That was awesome to get a little insight there. So